is your channel, Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GBNews was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GBNews exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GBNews came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, is led to a national inquiry.
GBNews exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense.
Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show live in Liverpool at the Labour Party conference. Housing Secretary Steve Reid will join me on the programme as more than 2 million people sign a petition against digital ID. Could this be the government's biggest misstep yet? And let's be honest, there's been quite a few over the last 14 months. I'm also going to be speaking to his counterpart, Shadow Housing Secretary Sir James Cleverly. How does he respond to the mega poll out this week which shows that the Tory party could be reduced to almost nothing, the likes of which have not been seen since the 17th century? Polling at the moment is just crazy. For Reform, former Tory party chairman and defector Sir Jake Berry will be here. Does he have any evidence to back up his leader's claim that migrants are eating not cats and dogs, but swans? We'll drill into the detail of that. Plus, the man behind the mega poll which found Nigel Farage is on course to become the next Prime Minister. Patrick English will be here. Are we on the cusp of a once-in-a-century political realignment? And we're also going to be speaking to the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing, who's going to join me with GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, as we prepare for a busy next few days here in Liverpool. Just how crucial will Starmer's speech be on Tuesday? As ever, an absolutely packed show is lined up for you, so do not even think of going anywhere. Joining me now, we have the perfect guest to review the Sunday front pages at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. It's the former associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. Kevin, the lefty to my righty. This is joyous, isn't it? Normally you're paired up with Piercy, but it's me today. Let's get stuck in your favourite newspaper, the Sunday Mirror. Now, they're trying to, what's the expression? I was going to say polish something. Perhaps I shouldn't say that on Sunday morning. They're trying to jazz up what has been a terrible, terrible prelude to this conference for Keir Starmer. This is about him taking the fight to grubby Farage. Just give me your overview of how bad you think it is right now.
Yeah, he thinks he's grubby for two reasons. One is the amount of money he makes on top of his MP's salary, about £1 million. I don't get some of that from GBNews, but also
Possibly, yes.
also selling gold bullion. And then also grubby because he's accusing him of exploiting and festering grievances without coming up with any answers. But there's no doubt, the very fact, there's an interview in the Sunday Mirror, Lizzie Buchan, the political editor, on the morning of the start of the Labour conference, and it's all about Farage.
Yes.
Because he's making the political weather. And in politics, you don't give your opponents the oxygen of publicity unless you have to. And you have to now because he's making the running. It'll be the same at the Conservative conference in Manchester next week.
Farage is living rent-free in the heads of the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition.
Yep.
Is this the right strategy? There are many in the Tory side, I don't know about Labour, saying, stop mentioning reform.
Yeah, well, Farage's property portfolio is much bigger than all the houses he rents out and
Kevin, I love
owns.
these little digs you're getting in at Farage's every step of the way.
Because he's, at the moment, he is the political figure who's making the running.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. And you can see Keir Starmer, he wins a thumping majority last year in Parliament, although on only 34% of the vote, as you know.
A loveless landslide, Kevin.
Yeah.
I mean, that is proving to be true. This man is deeply, deeply unpopular.
The landslide, the vote was really, it was as wide as a lake, but about as deep as a pond.
Yes, that's
as you
right.
Say
Shallow as a puddle.
And he's mismanaged it right from the beginning with winter fuel and the rows over his free glasses and
Donagate. What about ID cards now? I mean, you're the least popular politician in the country. You are literally the least popular PM in history. And now he's come out with the least popular policy in history. I mean, it's a poll tax moment, this.
Yeah, well, I can't see how they'll actually work, because if people are employing others illegally, unlawfully, they're not going to say, where's your ID card?
No.
They're still going to say, I'll undercut the minimum wage, not give you any employment rights and exploit you. They're not going to say, oh, God, now I've got to see your digital ID. I just can't, I can't see why it would work. And I've got less faith in big tech solutions than Keir Starmer himself, and also the Tony Blair Institute from the former Prime Minister, which has been pushing it.
Well, this is in the Mail on Sunday. We just skipped because I'm going to come back to the brown-eyed boy Burnham in just a moment. Is tech giant who gave Blair $257 million in line for a huge ID card contract? This is a suggestion that people from Larry Ellison's institute have met with Labour ministers multiple times over the course of the last year.
Yeah.
This smells a little bit, Kevin.
It does, and questions have to be asked. Now, most of the detail in this piece in the Mail on Sunday come from a piece last week in the New Statesman, with the added twist now of digital ID cards, because Larry Ellison has been pushing tech solutions because he's a tech giant. He's a tech
he's very
tycoon.
close to Tony Blair, isn't he? Just explain that.
That 257 million you described is money that has gone from Ellison, who's a zillionaire in Silicon Valley. It's gone to the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. So it hasn't actually gone into Blair's pocket directly, but Blair is using it to advocate his ideas around the world, and including in Britain. And he seems to have influenced Starmer on digital ID cards. I mean, personally, I just genuinely do not think it is the answer to what's happening in parts of the economy, or people getting on small boats. As an issue, I think we've become over-obsessed with it, which it's an issue. I get that. But you're not going to say, where's your digital ID card?
No, they don't have any paperwork at all.
No,
I mean, this is just a fallacy.
And if people are being employed unlawfully off the books, the unscrupulous employers are not going to bother checking for a digital ID card.
Well, also, people say that they have to go to the Home Office to find out that somebody's got legal working status anyway, so we have these checks. Let's just have a little moment of reflection on the rise of Andy Burnham. Should we tell the joke? We like the joke. So the joke is as follows. A Blairite, a Brownite, a Starmerite and a Corbynite walk into a bar in Liverpool, and the barman says, hello, Andy. Is that the case? Is this man a political chameleon, a political charlatan? What's going on here?
If you're being charitable, you would say he's been on a journey.
Right, he's been on a zigzagging
journey. Is what you would say, right? His opponents say he's a flip-flopper, he'll be whatever you want, he bears the impression of the last person to sit on him.
Yes.
Others will say is a politician, started very, very young in politics, special advisor, beginning of the New Labour era, goes through the cabinet, Blair, and then into Brown, stands for leadership twice. 2017 decides to leave Westminster, come up to be the Greater Manchester Mayor, where he is incredibly popular.
King of the North,
unquestionably. And he now has gone left with his policies, advocating, for instance, a wealth tax, wider public ownership. He has some successes as Greater Manchester Mayor. He's not just a frontman for the city. He can look at the bus network, which he has taken back under public control, the private operate.
He's peaked too early, Kevin.
Well, that is what is being said here now. He's been too naked in his ambition when he can't even stand for the Labour leadership at the moment because you've got to be an MP.
Yeah.
First of all, you've got to be an MP, then you need 80 others to all say, I want you, not just we want a contest,
But he thinks they do
you.
want him because he told the Telegraph last week, oh yeah, well, MPs want me to stand, so I can't rule out a leadership challenge.
Some do want him.
Do you think, honestly?
I've heard them say it in Westminster.
Do you think Keir Starmer is going to be Labour leader and Prime Minister this time next year?
Probably yes.
Probably, but not definitely.
And no, you can't say it's definitely now because people are in Westminster. They're looking. We'll go back to Farage and Reform. They can see those polls. They read them too.
Yeah.
They know what's happening on their doorsteps. They know in Labour heartlands some Labour supporters have gone over to Reform. Predominantly Tory support still for Reform, but they are losing Labour working class voters.
I mean, if you
how do they get them back?
Well, also, if you look at some of that MRP polling, some of the big beasts that could lose their seats, Bridget Phillipson, Wes Streeting, OK, well, he's on a tiny majority anyway, Yvette Cooper, loads of really significant Labour figures in what we would regard to be Labour heartlands. And this is not just a combination of the rise of Reform, is it? It's the competition on the left from Corbyn and Sultana. Now, I appreciate that you need to get their ideas together and get a party
together
and actually get a party together, and of course the Greens. Shall we have a quick look at the Liverpool Echo? Just because we're in Liverpool, we like to look at the local press. This headline: Starmer vow to halt toxic far right. He's not calling Reform far right still, is he?
No. If you read this inside, it's because the Echo had a very powerful front page, Stop the Spread of Far Right, detailing rise in attacks on Liverpool's very diverse communities. Got to remember, this was a slave city, a slave trade city. A lot of the money was made by merchants in Liverpool and Bristol from the slave trade, and it's always been a very diverse, very vibrant culture. You'll see Chinese Quarter and so on.
I had a lovely Egyptian taxi driver bring me in today. Funny enough, warning against the rise of Islamic extremism in the UK.
Well,
which I thought was interesting.
Well, of course, as you know, the Islamic extremists, the Islamo-fascists, ISIS and so on, killed more Muslims than anybody else.
Indeed.
So if you're a Muslim, but there's been a terrible equation in parts of British politics, particularly on the right,
so this
of
is a
all
kind
Muslims
of
with terrorism, which is grotesque.
So it's a call for calm from the Echo.
It is, but I always characterise Reform as hard right, not far right. Far right are the extremists around Stephen Lennon, Tommy Robinson, as he likes to call himself with his football hooligan name, rather than Reform. Although you can see now that far right is pulling Farage and Reform further right. We've seen that with mass deportation calls.
Haven't he?
He condemns
pulled away from Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib's party, which seems to be more aligned with Robinson and others.
But proposing mass deportations of people who are here legally.
Well, he's proposing a recertification of people who are on indefinite leave to remain to get different kinds of visas. That's not a mass deportation plan,
or
is it?
his swan fake story.
I'm going to speak to Jake Berry about swans. There was a swan that appeared in a pot in a video by the RSPCA, but that was 15 years ago. But let's find out.
There's always been a problem with poaching in
carpet swans.
Britain.
Don't worry. As my colleague at the Telegraph, Tim Stanley, summed up last week's quite nutty newspapers, he said, the next thing we know, there's going to be a report that eating a swan can give you autism. And on that note, Kevin Maguire, thank you very much indeed for joining me today. Lovely to see you. Now, in accordance with the GB News editorial charter, we need to set the record straight and make an apology. On the 16th of February 2025, the Camilla Tominey Show broadcast a live interview with Amjad Tahar, a political analyst. In that interview, Mr. Tahar said that Islamic Relief, a UK-registered charity, had been banned in countries overseas because an investigation showed it had sent money to some terrorist groups in the Middle East. We accept that the allegation that Islamic Relief had funded terrorist groups is untrue. Islamic Relief has stated that it does not promote or support extremism of any kind and that it is purely a humanitarian organisation. We apologise to Islamic Relief and are happy to correct the record. Now, coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary. Lots of questions to ask him. Has he supported the man who is now the least popular PM in history, and was that a mistake? This is the Camilla Tominey Show, live in Liverpool, only on GB News. Stay tuned.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Ex-Hurricane Gabriel continues to bring some wet and windy conditions across parts of Iberia over the next couple of days, particularly across southern parts of Spain and Portugal through Monday afternoon. There'll continue to be some strong winds and outbreaks of heavy rain. A little drier across parts of France and Italy, but the Balkans continue to see some outbreaks of quite heavy rain as we go through Monday afternoon. It'll then turn a little bit drier towards the middle part of the week, and temperatures for most reaching the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Housing Secretary Steve Reid joins me now. Lovely to see you, Mr. Reid. Thank you for being here. This isn't the best start to Labour conference, is it? We've got polling suggesting that Keir Starmer is now the least popular PM in history. His approval rating, God forbid, is below Boris Johnson after Partygate, Liz Truss after the mini-budget. It's even lower than John Major at his lowest ebb.
Well, we shouldn't be surprised at any of that, I don't think.
Why?
When we know that trust in politics and politicians is so broken because actually of the broken promises of Boris Johnson and his friends.
Hang on
we had
a minute.
austerity, we had Brexit
It's
didn't deliver what it
Boris
was supposed
Johnson's
to do.
fault that Keir
We had
Starmer
Liz
is
Truss's budget.
unpopular.
Well, they've shattered trust in politics, and I'm afraid it's shattered, and people are not going to give their trust back until they see change that they can feel in their lives. So what we've started to do as a government is start to turn around the issues people voted for change on. So with 10 months with this government, wages have gone up faster than in 10 years under the previous government. And one of the things that people are really worried about is the cost of living.
Yes.
So the fact they're now seeing wages rise faster than prices for the first time is a real benefit, but it takes time for that to feed through.
We're not going to have party political broadcasts on the show. Let's just be realistic about this.
That's just what we're doing as a government.
I know,
people.
I get that. But let's be honest, Keir Starmer is far less popular now than he was when he was elected PM. The reason for that is he keeps on doing U-turns, flip-flopping. Aides are leaving Downing Street in droves. Angela Rayner's had to resign. Peter Mandelson's had to be sacked. He's coming out with wildly unpopular policies that he then has to reverse when the left says, by the way, this wasn't why you were elected. We've now got the digital ID card scheme. 2 million people have already signed a petition. So the least popular PM in history has now come up with one of the least popular policies in history. He's doing a terribly bad job.
I know
that's
why
the
he's News narrative, but it isn't actually
that's the
true.
country's narrative.
There's more money in people's pockets after 10 months of this government than after 10 years in the previous government.
Really?
People wanted to cut the record-breaking NHS waiting lists. We've got 5 million more appointments. We promised to do 2 million. We've done 5 million. That's cutting those waiting lists. 35,000 people who had no right to be in the country have been removed. That's the most for a decade. I'm going to be on the stage shortly announcing a record-breaking new generation of new towns so we can build the homes people want to live in when the previous government stopped building. Now, I recognise that trust in politics is broken, but we are delivering the change people want to see. I know it takes time for that to feed through, but what you don't do is stop-start, have the revolving door we saw under the Tories.
Well, this
we'll
has
stay
been
the
a
course
revolving door.
And we'll make the change
revolving door. Let's list the people who have left so far. Sue Gray, Louise Haigh, Tulip Sadiq, Andrew Gwynn, Matthew Doyle, Rushanara Ali, Nin Pandit, James Lyon,
none of that,
Angela Rayner, Claire Reynolds, Lord Mandelson,
the
Paul
change
Overton,
that we're going to deliver.
Steph Driver, the brilliant Steph Driver, who was Director of Communications. Even she can't bear to be inside number 10 anymore. What do you do? This is the ultimate revolving door.
No, it
the
isn't.
door hasn't stopped spinning for the people leaving number 10.
Absolutely not. Do you know, I think we had 1 year, we had 3 prime ministers under the Conservatives in just 1 year. Grant Shapps had 3 different cabinet roles in just 1 year. We're going to stay the course with this prime minister, and we're going to keep doing what we need to do to put money in people's pockets. So the announcements I'm making today around housing, it's really important. We have a housing crisis in this country because the previous government wouldn't build the homes people want to live in. And so we've got young people, some of them might be watching this show today, who simply cannot get that first foot on the housing ladder, and they deserve the chance you and I had when we were younger. So we're going to give them we're going to build the home so they can share in the dream of home ownership that so many of us that are older enjoy.
How many homes have you built so far under Labour?
Well, do you know how long it takes for a planning application to go through?
Just how many?
Do you know how long it takes?
Just give me the figure.
Well, we're currently dealing with the tail end of what the Conservatives were doing, because it takes more than 18 months from an application to the home being built.
Please answer the question.
No, but I'm not going to take the blame for what the Tories did.
No,
I'm going to take the blame for what Labour does if it goes wrong subsequently. We're changing the rules to speed up planning so that the problem we're seeing now doesn't happen again in future.
How many houses have been built under Labour so far?
Starts have gone up by 29%. What I can't do...
Can you give me a figure?
I know it's really low, and I'm appalled by it as
What's
well, but
the
that
figure?
is because the Conservatives didn't get the applications through.
Please don't tell me you don't know the number as
Conservatives didn't get the applications
Secretary.
through.
Do you
29% up starts.
No. How many new homes have been built since Labour took power?
I don't have the exact... I'm not Wikipedia.
You don't have...
No, I'm not Wikipedia.
No,
I'm here to talk to you about policy. That doesn't mean I know every single statistic going on in the entire housing sector.
You don't know how many
only know
homes...
it because it's written in front of you.
Well, but I'm not in charge of housing. How can my producer have this figure and you not have it?
Well, because somebody's researched it for you and given it to you, and someone hasn't researched it for me and given it to me. What I know I need to do is build new homes. So we're announcing today plans to build a new generation of new towns for the first time since the Second World War. That will be more than 300,000 new homes, giving young people the chance to get their foot on the housing ladder, giving people that are stuck in squalid, substandard, expensive rental accommodation the chance to get somebody that they can afford to rent.
Forgive me.
It's putting the key to a decent home in the hands of the British people. Because you've got a stat on a bit of paper that I haven't got says nothing whatsoever.
I'm surprised.
Other than you're trying to do a gotcha moment.
I'm not
and that's so sad for your viewers because they'd probably like a sensible debate.
This is silly.
Yes, it is.
It's not a gotcha.
Camilla, it's very silly.
It's not a gotcha for me to ask you as Housing Secretary how many new homes have been completed since Labour took power. That is like the most basic
I know it's
stat.
unacceptable. I know it's unacceptable because we're dealing with the tail end of the Tory failure to get applications in. They scrapped housing targets. We're putting them back in. We've got a law going through Parliament now that will get royal assent in November that will speed up the planning process so that when we get an application, quicker to get a consent, quicker to get spades in the ground, quicker to get that home built, somebody can buy it, somebody can rent it. We will end the housing crisis that we saw under the Conservatives.
I'll tell you how many have been built so far. It's 117,390.
And it's too low.
It's far too low because at that rate it's going to take 13 years to reach your 1.5 million housing target by the end of Parliament.
But I fear, Camilla, you're not listening to what I'm saying.
Because what I'm saying is I've just asked you for a really basic figure and you're saying it's a gotcha and
when I'm trying to explain what we're doing. So we're changing the planning laws. It's going to get royal assent in November. It will speed up the planning process, and then we're working with the developers to make sure that they're training up enough people in construction and engineering and quantity surveying so that we can build 1.5 million homes over the course of this Parliament. It won't be built at the same rate in year 5 as in year 1 because the changes that we're making now will make it go faster as we work through the Parliament. So we will get those homes built. The level right now is unacceptable, but it's at that level because the previous government didn't do, when they were in power, what I'm doing today to speed it up.
Well, the last year that they were in power, they did get up to 200,000 plus homes in the final year. But my question is this: how can you say that you'll definitely meet that 1.5 million housing target when so far you're nowhere near it? In London,
well, I just explained that. We're changing the rules
so
to make it happen faster.
So you're guaranteeing that? You're guaranteeing 1.5 million?
My job depends on it.
Your job depends on it?
You can call me back here at the end, when we've gone through this Parliament, you can call me back here and I will be held to account. But what I have committed to do is 1.5 million homes. I've met the developers in my first week. They told me a whole load of areas where they want work speeded up. I'm going to announce an acceleration package in 2 or 3 weeks' time based on what the developers have told me they want, so that we can do everything we need to do to get those homes built faster.
Do you appreciate my point? I know you've said it's a gotcha, but will people have... It's not a gotcha. Why would people have confidence that you'll meet the target if you didn't have an answer to the question? How many homes have you built so far?
You've got a researcher who gave you that stat. I am changing the way that the planning rules work. I'm taking down the barriers that get in the way. We've got a law going through Parliament now that will speed up planning, precisely so we can get more homes built for the young people that need somewhere affordable to rent or to buy, and to get families out of overcrowded accommodation. Homelessness went up 50% under the last government. People living in temporary accommodation up 50% after the last government. Affordable and social house building down 75% under the last government, and rents went up 50% under the last government. That's all because they refused to build. I won't refuse to build. In fact, my slogan is build, baby, build, and we're going to get those homes built because people's lives and livelihoods and life chances depend on it.
Okay, so it's borrowed from the Donald Trump school. He says drill, baby, drill. You want to say build...
Build, baby, build.
Do you like Donald Trump? Because Sadiq Khan thinks that he's a racist and an Islamophobe, and yet your leader has just rolled out the red carpet for him.
Well, here's the President of the United States, and the United States are our closest ally, so it's quite right.
So is Trump a racist and an Islamophobe, or someone that should be welcomed to the country?
He does sometimes say slightly strange things. He said London was going to adopt Sharia law. That absolutely isn't the truth. I'm proud to be a Londoner. I represent a London constituency. Nobody is looking at bringing in Sharia law, so Donald Trump was wrong on that. But the US is our strongest trading partner. We secured a trade deal with the US recently. It was the best trade deal that any country in the world has secured, and it protected tens of thousands of car workers' jobs in this country, and it means we can export more British goods to the US than before.
I'm getting a countdown in my ear, Steve Reid. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. That's Steve Reid. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to his counterpart in the Tories, Sir James Cleverly. We'll be back in just a jiffy.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 163 225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Good morning, Graham. What's your view on the latest comments about the gender of the next James Bond? Should there be one?
Well, there obviously should be a James Bond, but it should never be a woman. I think this is something that was in the media and the press some years ago that's kind of been dragged up to a degree. It's a nonsense. It was a nonsense when it was first spoken about some years ago, and it's just as big a nonsense now. It needs to be a 6 foot tall, dark-haired, strapping, middle-aged guy. I say middle, I mean talking about 32.
Graham, like,
32 is quite young in my book.
Well, no, but I mean, look, Graham, what I say is that you know, a lot of these. I mean, I know Amazon, I believe, have bought the rights to James Bond now. I mean, you've seen what they've done with some of their other shows. I'm not so convinced they're not going to go down this super woke, what I would call woke route. Is it? Do they really need to reinvent James Bond though? Because we've had so many iterations of him. They pretty much killed him off in the last movie. Do we need to reinvent the idea of James Bond, or should James Bond just retire? Should we say, actually, do you know what? We've had James Bond for almost 100 years. Actually, should we let this character rest for at least a bit of time, or maybe just retire the character before it gets destroyed by modern reinventions of it?
Well, I think there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be an audience for James Bond if those films are made the correct way. I mean, you've got a perfect blueprint. If you look at the Bond films in the 60s, and you follow that as a blueprint, you can't go wrong, because most of them are based on Ian Fleming, and it's the best Bond films are the ones that are based on Fleming's books quite closely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning and welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show, live from the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Lots more still to come on today's show. Shadow Housing Secretary Sir James Cleverly will join me. How does he respond to the mega poll out this week that shows the Tory party could be reduced to almost nothing, the likes of which have not been seen since the 17th century? I'll also be speaking to former Tory party chairman and now Reform member Sir Jake Berry. Does he have any evidence to back up his leader's claim that migrants are eating swans? Director of Political Analytics, even, at YouGov, Patrick English, will be here to break down that mega poll which puts Nigel Farage on course to become Prime Minister at the next general election. I'm also going to be joined by the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Whiting, alongside GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, at the end of the show. Lots more still to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. Joining me now is Shadow Housing Secretary Sir James Cleverly. Hopefully you can hear me, Sir James Cleverly, as I'm in Liverpool and you're in London. Lovely to see you this morning.
And you. Well,
we've had a couple of mega polls out this week that
nearly good enough.
We've had a couple of mega polls out this week. Are in a desperate situation, James Cleverly. 2 polls are putting them on 14%. That would reduce them to 45 seats, which would be the lowest number of seats that they have won in history, taking them back to the 17th century in terms of popularity. This is problematic for Kemi Badenoch, isn't it? How can she turn things around for your party?
Well, the thing about those opinion polls is that they are at best a snapshot, they are not a prediction, and there is a long time between now and the next general election. We've already seen with Labour that their popularity has absolutely crashed, and they have done that in just 15 months. Reform are obviously very pleased about these opinion polls, but really what we're seeing is whenever they put forward any proposals, those proposals fall apart, often within hours of being made. What Kemi is doing, what the Conservative Party is doing, is making sure we've actually got a credible plan to recover the economy from the disastrous high tax situation that we will inevitably inherit from Labour. We've just heard earlier today Keir Starmer refuse to rule out increasing VAT. We know that Rachel Reeves is going to have to put up taxes in the autumn budget, and what we're seeing from Reform is that they want to increase the welfare budget, and that means inevitably increasing taxes. So we are doing the professional hard work. We'll let the flimsy headline-grabbing announcements, we'll leave that to Labour and Reform, and the hijinks to the Lib Dems. We're the only party that's got a credible plan for actually reducing taxation and getting the country back in the right direction.
It's not flimsy, is it, when you've got 113 polls putting Reform ahead, and all polls suggesting that the longer Kemi Badenoch leads the party, the less popular she and it becomes. Would you have been a better leader?
Well, I ran for leadership. I didn't get it. I'm completely comfortable with that. What I've also said is one of the things that damaged us as a party was this constantly cycling through leaders. What we need to do is highlight, and we are doing this, highlighting the disastrous job that Labour are doing in government. Increasingly now that Reform are running things in local government, we're starting to see the absolute disaster that they are when they're in charge of anything. Of course, we have got to rebuild our reputation. That will not happen overnight. But we don't rebuild reputations by making increasingly undeliverable promises, like we've just heard from Steve Reid, who's claiming he's going to build houses despite the fact that he personally opposed house building in his own constituency. We're not going to rebuild credibility the way Reform are doing it, which is making announcements that don't even last 24 hours before they fall apart. We are doing the professional hard work that is what you have to do to regain credibility.
Can I just say that what lacks credibility is Boris Johnson having last week announced that he was very proud of what he did with immigration while he was Prime Minister. So between January 2021 and June 2024, 4.3 million migrants came into the UK, including 3.8 million with long-term visas. He thinks that he's very proud of this Boris wave. Are you proud of it?
Well, Boris is the person who is best to speak about the decisions that Boris made. When I was Home Secretary, I recognised that the visa regime that we had put in place as a government, my predecessors put in place, in order to address the number of people who had left the country during the COVID era, was far too generous, and I set about changing that visa regime. Opposed, I would say, by the Labour Party at the time. Because of the decisions that I made as Home Secretary, net migration was halved, and had we stayed in government, that number would have continued to come down, and come down significantly. Labour have failed to implement most of the proposals that I put forward. They scrapped the border control measures that I was putting in place. They scrapped the Rwanda scheme, and we're now seeing small boat arrivals go through the roof. So Boris is best placed to speak about the decisions Boris made. I made decisions as Home Secretary which brought net migration down by half.
But when you were Home Secretary in the 12 months leading to June 2024, net migration was 738,718. That's the second largest number or jump since 1948.
And Camilla, whilst I was Home Secretary, so the immigration that happened whilst I was Home Secretary was because of the decisions that I inherited from predecessors. When I was Home Secretary, I changed the visa regime, and the result of the changes the result of the changes that I made was a halving of net migration. So I'm very proud of the record that I had as Home Secretary. And the simple fact of the matter is, Labour are now trying to wrap themselves up in the flag because they've realised their open border attitude. Remember, Keir Starmer saying all immigration law was inherently racist, realising how unpopular that is, they're trying to wrap themselves up in the flag. Reform's deportation plans falling apart within 24 hours of its announcement. The Conservative Party actually doing the hard work, thinking through how we actually make these changes, whether it be judicial reform, whether it be changes to the international treaties that we signed up to. We are doing the serious work, and we'll let other parties do the, as I say, we'll do the headline grabbing stuff, which they know will not work.
OK, but let's talk about those international treaties. Can you clarify where you now stand on the ECHR? Because previously you've been hesitant
I stand where I've always
to leave
stood.
the ECHR.
No, where I've always stood.
It's Kemi Bade. Well, what's the answer? What's the answer there?
My position has always been the same, and if you guys can't report it, that's your fault, not mine. My position has always been that leaving the ECHR is not a silver bullet solution. That is what I've always said. That is what those are the exact words that Kemi has also said. That's what Lord Wolfson has said, and he is putting forward an analysis of what we would need to do in totality to be able to deport the people that we need to be able to deport, to protect the things that we want to protect, and he has not issued his report as yet, but Kemi made it really clear that just saying something like, are we going to leave the ECHR, may well not be enough to actually achieve what we need to achieve. And we need to think about it in a more holistic way. That's what Lord Wolfson's report will be about. That is exactly the position that I've always taken. And that is different to the Labour position, which is nothing to see here, everything's fine, and leave well alone. And the Reform position, which is make a throwaway statement and pretend that that is enough, and it absolutely isn't.
All right, so we avoid any further misreporting of what you've said. Can you clarify whether you did say in private, when you were Home Secretary, that you thought the Rwanda plan was, quotes, bat, S-H-I-T, crazy?
No, I didn't. What I said was that our almost exclusive focus on that was bat crazy. What I said, and I said this when I was Home Secretary, we had a range of activities to including the Small Boats Operational Command, including returns agreements with Albania, including tightening up the enforcement of illegal working, and the Rwanda plan. The point I made is only talking about the Rwanda plan meant that we weren't talking about the range of other things that we're doing, and that was what was crazy. That was what I was frustrated about. And when I became Home Secretary, I made sure that as well as actually moving forward with Rwanda, we also spoke about the other range of things. And actually, the person that I had that conversation with, funnily enough, was Yvette Cooper. And her betraying and misreporting a private conversation, I think, was rather unprofessional.
OK, but isn't there a contradiction at the heart of your argument? Your argument is as follows. Labour are terrible. They've been terrible in the office from the very beginning, and they just get worse. Reform are making up policies as they go along. They can't be trusted. None of their claims are credible. And yet still the Tories are tanking. So even though Labour are terrible and Reform can't be trusted, you're still tanking in the polls. Why is that?
Well, people will increasingly see. So Labour are, I think, their position is irrecoverable. It will still take us time to rebuild the trust of the electorate. And in the meantime, Reform are making completely uncredible promises. Now, those statements from Reform are superficially
but why are you
attractive.
tanking?
But ultimately, as we have seen, when and wherever they are actually in positions of leadership, their delivery completely fails. And voters will increasingly see that. Now, it is going to take time for us to recover our credibility. I'm explaining, Camilla. It will take time for us to recover our relationship with voters. But what we're not going to do is be blown off course just because one person, and it is a one-man band. Nigel Farage is an incredibly effective political communicator, but if you look at anyone and everyone behind him,
well, he's got some Tories with him now, hasn't he?
Up to the job. Well, I think.
What, Danny Kruger?
The recruiting of Danny. I think recruiting of Danny is part of his succession planning. He clearly doesn't trust the other people within his party, so he's getting somebody in to kind of carry the flame forward. But I don't think it will work. I don't think that people will be tricked by reform for very much longer, because whenever and wherever they are in charge of anything, they fail the people that elected them. People will see that, and in the meantime, we will continue building our credible arguments to get things done, to reduce tax, to secure our borders, to protect our country, to build the homes that we need. Unlike Labour, unlike Reform, which are frankly two sides of the same coin in their lack of credibility.
OK, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning, Sir James Cleverly. Up next, I'm going to be speaking to the former Tory party chairman. He was once James Cleverly's mate. Now he's cozying up with Reform and Nigel Farage, Sir Jake Berry. This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show, live from the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Joining me now is former Tory party chairman and now Reform defector, Sir Jake Berry. Lovely to see you this morning, Sir Jake. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has told the BBC, hasn't done an interview with me this morning, can't think why. Maybe he doesn't like a few tough questions. But he suggested that your indefinite leave to remain plan is both immoral and racist. What's your reaction to that?
Well, look, isn't that just absolutely typical? So, I mean, also today, Shabana Mahmood is coming out and saying something needs to happen about indefinite leave to remain. Look, what we saw in the last Parliament is 3.2 million people come to the UK who will automatically get the right to stay here for the rest of their life, claim benefits, use the NHS, get a pension, unless we act. Nigel Farage quite correctly came out this week and said we must act to stop this. It's going to cost billions of pounds to the UK economy. And what I'd say to your viewers listening at home is, why should someone who comes here temporarily to work automatically receive the right to live here for the rest of their life and claim benefits? I don't think that is either racist or controversial. It's frankly just common sense, Camilla.
So, Jake Berry, haven't you got some brass neck here? You supported vocally, privately, publicly, professionally Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister that said last week that he was very proud of his Boris wave, this idea of more than 4 million migrants coming into the country in the run-up to 2024, the summer of 2024. Now you're saying that was all a mistake. You supported it.
Well, let me stop you there, Camilla, because that's actually not correct. So if you look at my voting record in Parliament, I was one of the few MPs who repeatedly voted against my own party in many cases to toughen up our stance on immigration. Boris Johnson's a good friend of mine. I'm not going to get into the business of criticising him. He must justify why he thinks having, as you say, nearly 4 million people come to this country in a short period of time was the right thing to do for Britain. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I've never thought it was the right thing to do, and I haven't changed my mind. And I would remind Conservative members of Parliament that all of us, when I was a Conservative, stood for an election repeatedly on manifestos that said we would bring immigration down to the tens of thousands. What we have seen since 2010 is in fact over 10 million people coming to our country, changing our society. It's not the right thing for Britain. Enough is enough. We have to act now to stop this.
OK, can we just move on to the Reform Conference? I know we're in Liverpool now, but you did have somebody at your conference. You gave a platform to Aseem Malhotra, who some consider to be a conspiracy theorist. He went on stage and suggested that the COVID vaccines might have caused both the King and the Princess of Wales to develop cancer. Do you agree with him? Should he have been given a platform to say that at your conference?
I absolutely disagree. I frankly think that is complete and utter nonsense, and it is certainly not Reform policy. Look, the thing about the Reform Conference, unlike the Labour conference that you're at the moment and the Conservative conference that's happening next week, we welcome debate. We're a party that is in touch with our membership. In fact, only this week we surpassed 250,000 members in the Reform Party, and why people are joining us in their droves is we welcome debate. We listen to the British people. We reflect their values. So, you know, while that guy was wrong, he has no role in Reform. He doesn't speak for the party. We shouldn't run away from these debates.
But there's a difference between debate, isn't there, and actual misinformation. Let's get on to what both the leader of the party and indeed the deputy, Richard Tice, have said in reaction to Donald Trump linking Tylenol, which is paracetamol, to autism. Now, they seem to be saying the science is never settled. We've had people from the NHS in this country, we've had doctors saying it's perfectly safe to take paracetamol in pregnancy. What does he mean science is never settled? Is science not settled around the theory of gravity? Is science not settled around the theory of plate tectonics? Science is settled in a number of areas, isn't it, Sir Jake Berry?
Camilla, I'm glad you've asked me about this, because I think, as you know, I have an autistic son, and I think this is a really important debate. So therefore, for your viewers at home, I want to read out what Nigel Farage actually said. He said, individual countries should have their own debates and make their own health decisions. So I wouldn't follow what Mr. Kennedy Department does. I'd listen to what they have to say, but I wouldn't follow it. Having our own independent healthcare policy, making our own decisions, is clearly the right thing to do. So let me start by saying I think Nigel Farage has been completely misrepresented in relation to those comments. He was absolutely clear that we should follow what our own health department does. And I think the real debate, and what I hope that we can move to, away from discussing what's happening thousands of miles away on the other side of the Atlantic, when we have a record number of young people diagnosed with autism, when you have parents like me and my wife battling every day to get our son the care that he needs, let's have a proper debate in this country about how we support those tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even of parents who'll be watching this show today saying, my child is really struggling to access education. I can't get them the support they need. Let's talk about how we support those parents, not what Mr. Trump and his team may be doing 1,000 miles away. I think that's the wrong thing to focus on.
All right. But just to add another quote, you've quoted some of what Nigel Farage said. He also said, he told LBC this, he had no idea if the US president was right in his claim, adding, and I quote, "We were told that thalidomide was a very safe drug and it wasn't." So that seems to lean into the idea that there's something unsafe about taking paracetamol in pregnancy, when actually a Swedish study has suggested the complete opposite. And it questioned 2.4 million children and parents on it.
Well, Camilla, I mean, Nigel Farage may be many things, people's opinion may be divided. He's not a health expert. And that's what he's saying there, isn't there? That in his quote, he said, we must follow the science. And just on his comments about thalidomide, I had loads of constituents when I was a Member of Parliament who had had their lives appallingly affected by that terrible drug that was prescribed to women while pregnant to help them with morning sickness that led to the most appalling disabilities. So, look, you know, that is history. We are clear that we must follow the science on paracetamol in this country, that it's safe for women to take during pregnancy. But I do think, and what I hope we can move on to, is this wider debate about how we support the, you know, children like mine, parents like me and my wife, who cannot get the right support through the EHCP system for their autistic children. That's the real debate. That's what British parents care about. As I say, they don't, I think, care about what's being said thousands of miles away by the American government.
Okay. Fair enough. Just a quick question, again on something else that Nigel Farage said last week. When you were a Tory MP, did you ever have any constituents report that migrants had been eating swans or carp?
No, I didn't have any constituents report that migrants had been eating swans. I'll be completely honest with you. I actually did have a local angling club approach me to talk about poaching, in this case by Eastern Europeans, and I worked with the police locally on our reservoirs to ensure that people weren't illegally catching carp and eating them. The wider point on this, and the point that Nigel is making, ignoring the fact that both Sky, The Guardian, BBC have reported this sort of thing happening, is that we have tens of thousands of undocumented migrants in this country who are not assimilating into British society. That's what people are worried about, and things on the internet about carp or swans are just a demonstration of the fact how the previous government and this government has completely lost control of our borders, are bringing undocumented migrants into the heart of our community in migrant hotels, and people are genuinely concerned about that because these people are not assimilating into British society, and it's only by supporting reform, by voting reform, by joining the party, that you have a political party that has the guts to actually stand up and do something about this.
Final quick question, Sir Jake. I'm going to be speaking to Patrick English from YouGov in just a moment about that MRP polling. Look, it puts it puts reform well ahead, but still not enough to form a majority. So some deal with the Tories is almost inevitable, isn't it?
Well, there's a couple of polls out today, isn't there? There's a big one which shows Reform forming a majority, but as you know, polls are a snapshot of public opinion. There is a long way to go until the next general election. What we in Reform are concentrating on is the hugely important elections Nigel Farage has said his top priority is Wales for next year. We have important elections in Scotland, over 1,000 seats in London, multiple mayoralties up. Reform will be working every single day to take those staggering poll leads. I think 18 months ago people would have thought, this was just beyond belief. Those staggering poll leads, we are working every day to turn poll leads into votes, because what people want in this country isn't reform ahead in the opinion polls, is reform councillors, reform mayors, reform members of the Senate, reform members of the Scottish Parliament, representing them, delivering value for taxpayers and ensuring that we focus on the issues that matter to the British people.
Thank you very much for joining me this morning, Sir Jake Berry. Coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to the Director of Political Analytics at YouGov, Patrick English. We'll be here to break down that mega poll we've just spoken about, which does put Nigel Farage on course to become the next Prime Minister at the next general election. But will he need the Tories' help? This is the Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It was a damp start to the weekend for many of us yesterday, but today does look a little bit brighter. However, there is still some rain around first thing this morning, particularly across northern parts of Scotland, where we'll see some outbreaks of heavy rain. And across the southeast, the weather front that we saw yesterday does linger through much of this afternoon, bringing some cloudier skies, some outbreaks of patchy rain here. Elsewhere, though, once that weather front clears northwards across much of Scotland, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. Still one or two isolated showers across the north and the northwest, but feeling pleasantly warm in that prolonged sunshine, particularly across the south with highs of 19, perhaps 20 degrees, and definitely feeling more pleasant further north too, although temperatures still here around about average. So a cloudy end to the day across the very far southeast, particularly across parts of Essex and Kent, where we see that rain persisting into the evening. A few isolated showers across parts of southwest England, Wales, parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England and much of Scotland too. We'll continue to see one or two isolated showers through Sunday evening, and parts of Shetland and Orkney perhaps seeing some cloudier skies to end the day on Sunday too. But as we go overnight Sunday and into the start of Monday, that weather front across the southeast eventually clears offshore, and any showers that we do see gradually start to ease. So plenty of clear spells around, and with light winds that means it's going to feel much chillier than it did on Saturday night. There is also a risk of mist and fog around in places, particularly across eastern parts of England, and when we do see those clear skies, particularly in rural spots, we could see a touch of frost in places. Any of that mist and fog could be a little slow to clear in places, but otherwise generally a dry, bright but chilly start to the morning on Monday. Any sunshine we do see across the northwest quickly turning hazy though, as we see this weather front sweeping in from the northwest as we go through Monday afternoon. The best of any prolonged sunshine definitely across the southeast, where we'll see highs of 19 to 20 degrees and perhaps a little cooler further north, particularly if you're stuck underneath that cloud and rain.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm joined now by the Director of Political Analytics at YouGov, Patrick English, who's the pollster of the moment because you've come out with your mega poll. We're talking about it a lot this morning. We're talking about two things. We're talking about the mega poll and its findings, but also the lack of popularity or the growing unpopularity of Keir Starmer. Let's get onto that in a minute. What's the top line findings of your mega poll?
So the top line findings of the latest YouGov MRP launched just before conference are that we expect, if an election were being held today, now caveat, it's not, but if one was being held out today that Nigel Farage would almost certainly be Prime Minister leading a reform government. We think that they would be, on our central projections, just 15 seats short of a parliamentary majority.
Okay.
A huge turnaround from just the 5 that they won only a year ago.
All right, so you need 326 MPs to get that majority.
That's correct.
But you still think he'll be Prime Minister because he'll be the largest party.
By some distance.
But it inevitably asks the question then, doesn't he then have to do a post-electoral deal with the Tories? How many seats might the Tories get under your projection?
Yes, under our projection we anticipate the Conservatives get somewhere around 40 seats. So that is a huge decline, even from the low point of last year. Now, yes, it would be true that Nigel Farage would need some kind of support in order to pass things like a budget. But if we take into account the Speaker, the fact that the Sinn Féin MPs don't take their seats, that 326 line decreases quite quickly down toward the 310 where we think Farage will be. So he would only need the occasional support, perhaps the Conservatives, perhaps even if the DUP over in Northern Ireland, depending what they might fancy doing.
Yes, good point, because they're very socially conservative.
Quite.
But what's the vote share then to project that? What's the percentage that they could get under your recent polling?
So our MRP projections have them at around about 27% of the national vote.
So only 20%, 27%.
That's correct.
So in order to get a majority then, what's the kind of magic number, bearing in mind that we now have this kind of bizarre, inadvertent proportional representation system because we've got so many other parties now in the fray. So what's the magic number to actually get past that 326 mark where he doesn't need to do deals with anyone?
Yeah, so your point about the fragmentation is a really good one, and it's quite important, and annoyingly means I can't really give a straight answer because it depends so much on where the Conservatives are. We have them at the minute down on 17%, but if they're up to sort of 18, 19, that's taking votes probably off Reform, so they'd have to put on another 2% to even be where they are now. But probably if Reform are reaching around about 30%, I think we can expect that in pretty much any scenario to be giving them an outright majority in Parliament, possibly even a little bit lower.
And also, what about a scenario where, yes, Reform perform really well, the Conservatives aren't completely eviscerated, they could back him up? That's always going to be a more of an option, is it, than all of the lefty parties grouping together? What if you had some axis between Labour, the Lib Dems, maybe even throw in Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana or the Greens, they do some kind of deal on the left? What's the prospect of that, Patrick?
Very low at this moment in time, but of course we're 1 year into a Parliament that we expect to run sort of 4 or 5 years, so a lot of the things could change. On our previous MRP projection we had Reform down at about 270. That kind of scenario is much kind of lends itself more likely to a Labour, Lib Dem, Green sort of pact coming together to try and keep him out. But then of course if Conservatives are around 50 or 60 seats, they could then be the kingmakers in that sort of scenario. So it'd be a fascinating thing to watch post-election of that kind. But from this moment in time, right now, it looks very difficult, I think, for parties of the left to be looking at forming a government. It's kind of more about, at the minute, can Reform get a majority of their own, and can the parties against Reform win enough seats to deny them an easy path toward doing that?
Are we getting overexcited far too early? I mean, you're a pollster, you've done this for a long, long time. These polls now, we're 3 years out. Could Reform have peaked too early? Is this just ridiculous? Because GB viewers and listeners will be thinking, it's all very well going, but this is years away.
I mean, it certainly is years away, and that's such an important caveat. There is not a general election happening now. This is a government, an unpopular government, experiencing some very early mid-term blues, and we should expect them to be down in the polls, and we should expect the principal party of the opposition, Reform UK, to be doing well. So all of those things are certainly true. I think it's useful for us to know, however, where the public are right now to give us a sense of where they might be come that election day. And as we've seen before, there can be snap elections pulled out of nowhere. You never know what will happen. So I think it's important that we do keep track. But yes, of course, this is a reflection of how people are thinking now. And the vast majority of the British public are simply not thinking about a general election. So they're not even in the mindset of things like tactical voting or who they might want to be preferring for Prime Minister. So there's so many caveats and so many things could change between now and the next election.
Would the Labour Party be better off with Andy Burnham as leader?
It's a very, very good question. Certainly our latest favourability ratings for Keir Starmer show his lowest favourability ratings that we have ever recorded. It's down on -50. There's about 20% of the population that have a good opinion towards him, and about much higher than that, 70%, have a bad opinion towards him. So he is in a very poor position right now with the general public. Andy Burnham, by comparison, is not anywhere near in such a bad position, but most people simply don't know who he is. The average member of the British public doesn't pay attention to the ins and outs of the Labour Party, or any party for that matter, and has very low familiarity with people such as Andy Burnham. So certainly he's a lot less unpopular, but there's room to grow in either direction in the eyes of the public.
And do you think that the Liberal Democrats are the dark horse party here? You know, they had their conference last week. It was criticised for a degree of clowning about by Ed Davey. I don't know whether they'll stick with him as leader or not, but they could hoover up a great many votes from disaffected Tories that think that reform is a bit too much for them, and indeed from disaffected Labour who won't go all the way to the right and therefore choose the yellows in the middle.
I think that's completely correct. The Liberal Democrats are doing a very good job right now in terms of their positioning as a party that's able to attract voters from the Conservatives, for the reasons you outlined, and from Labour as well. And they get a lot of tactical support from Labour in constituencies where it's a Liberal Democrat versus Conservative, or as we're seeing now in our models, Liberal Democrat versus Reform. They're very good at uniting voters where they need them to win seats. We don't expect that they will be the second largest party, or be sort of breaking through and challenging Reform themselves. We still think that Labour are best placed to do that, but the Liberal Democrats were a force in 2024. We expect them to remain a force at the next election. And what that means for them is, if the next parliament is as fractured as we think it's going to be, a party with 60, 70, 80, 90 MPs suddenly becomes very powerful. Right now, of course, they had the record election result in 2024, but because of the size of the Labour majority, doesn't account for much in terms of parliamentary power. But it could do in an election where we see no party able to govern alone.
And when we look at the big beasts, the Labour big beasts that could lose their seats, let's just list them now. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary; Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary; Yvette Cooper, now the Foreign Secretary; Ed Miliband, of course, in charge of Labour's energy policy; Lisa Nandy, who's like the Queen of the North in Wigan; Angela Rayner. They could all lose their seats. Why is that, Patrick? Is it because of the rise of Reform in the Red Wall, or is it also because the Labour vote is being split, with people then veering off towards Corbyn and Sultana and Jack Palance on the Greens?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a bit of column A and a bit of column B. What we're seeing in all of these Labour seats, including the ones with the big BC you just listed there, is the Labour vote is down, the Reform vote is up, and in a lot of cases, a lot of these seats, if you took the Labour vote and you added on, it's never as simple as this, but hypothetically, if you added on the Liberal Democrat vote and the Green vote, Labour would be winning that seat in a sort of theoretical single party. And I think it's very interesting that Keir Starmer is starting to talk about this idea of it being Labour or Reform in the next election. Keir Starmer or Nigel Farage as PM. Because if that sets in with these voters in these constituencies who are supporting currently Liberal Democrats and the Greens, and they can get that sense of vote tactically for me, keep me in there and keep Reform out, that could be a good strategy to push Labour back over the line in those exact constituencies.
Patrick English, thank you very much. We have got years to go, so you and I will be speaking more and more. You'll be MRP polling and all sorts over the course of the next 3 years, but thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the conference. Right, coming up next, I'm going to be speaking to Chopper, GB News' political editor, and the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing. We're just going to go through what to expect from this conference and the significance that's going to be placed on Keir Starmer's speech on Tuesday. Don't go anywhere.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Ex-Hurricane Gabriel continues to bring some wet and windy conditions across parts of Iberia over the next couple of days, particularly across southern parts of Spain and Portugal through Monday afternoon. There'll continue to be some strong winds and outbreaks of heavy rain. A little drier across parts of France and Italy, but the Balkans continue to see some outbreaks of quite heavy rain as we go through Monday afternoon. It'll then turn a little bit drier towards the middle part of the week, and temperatures for most reaching the mid to high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
I thought you'd set up a new version of Pimlico Plumbers in London.
Yeah, my family have set up a company called We Fix London, but we started planning that, 2 years before Labour got in. If I'd known Labour was getting in, we wouldn't have planned it. So obviously we've got to comply with the tax regulations, but anybody with any sense would agree with what I'm saying. The taxes are too high in the UK for wealthy people. Wealthy people can go and work anywhere in the world and be financially a lot better off.
And we had a non-dom regime that was basically stable for 200 years. It's only recently that it's been changed, and we're changing it and making it harder, just as other countries are making it easier. So you can go to Italy and you can negotiate an amount that you will pay. Portugal's been welcoming people. Malta's been welcoming people. All over the world, countries are saying, please come and bring your money. And the UK is saying, we're going to take all your money. We don't want you anymore.
That's right. Look, I mean, they're all encouraging sort of UK business people to come there, and it's working. If you become a tax exile in Italy, you pay 200 grand for the year. You don't have to pay no more. But the real problem is we're wasting their money, and they should be encouraging entrepreneurs to be staying. I think our biggest export at the moment is wealthy people.
So you're a businessman. You know how to do things and make a profit. If you're advising the Chancellor on how to get the money the country needs to pay for the public services, what would you be saying? Because at the moment, the tax revenues don't meet our expenditure. There is a gap. Something needs to give.
Resign.
All right, but that's not the answer.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Liverpool Party Conference for Labour. Here I am joined by the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing, and GB News' political editor, Chris Hope. Chopper, lovely to see you both. You're in, just so the viewers and the listeners know, you're in Kettering, you won it last time, you nicked it off the Tories, you've got about a 4,000 majority there. Chopper, you need no introduction whatsoever. Rosie, coming into this conference, it's difficult, isn't it, as a new MP? You probably got elected thinking, yay, Labour! And it's not been an easy 14 months for Keir Starmer. His popularity's tanking. Everyone's talking about reform. How do you steal back the narrative for this conference?
I think it's important to acknowledge that I understand how eager people are across the country and in my constituency to feel change. I mean, we got elected on a mandate of change, and rightly so. They expect to feel that in their day-to-day lives. But the progress that we've already made on things like breakfast clubs, free trade deals that bring jobs to my constituents, increasing the national minimum wage, putting more money back in people's pockets, is making a difference to working people. But rightly so, I understand the need to go faster so that people in my constituency can feel their lives getting better and feel as though this country is fairer and working for them.
Talking about working people, Rosie, we have heard the Prime Minister on the BBC this morning refuse three times to rule out a VAT increase. Now, many people watching and listening to this show will think to themselves, how on earth does increasing VAT help working people?
Well, we stood on a manifesto that said we weren't going to increase taxes on working people. On the BBC show this morning, the Prime Minister did say multiple times that the manifesto still stands, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm in the Treasury or know the conversations that are going on ahead of the budget. But I think it is right that this government has and should continue to protect working people when we're making financial decisions about our country.
So would you be minded to push back against that if it comes out in the budget that there is indeed a tax on working people in a VAT rise, which had been expressly ruled out multiple times during the election campaign and actually afterwards? Would you be one of those backbenchers who says actually no?
I want to see my constituents feel as though this country is fair and working for them, and I think if people are going to work and they're earning a good wage and they're paying their taxes, they deserve to see things like our public services working and this country working for them.
So you don't think it's a good idea to put up VAT, Rosie?
I don't know the conversations that are going on,
just
and it's
speaking
hard.
Personally, you're not talking on behalf of the government, just about you personally and the good people of Kettering. They don't want VAT to go up, do they?
I don't think it's just about VAT by itself, but I think we need to have a country that works for working people, and there's multiple ways that we can protect working people, and I think this government will continue to do that.
Chopper, if they put up VAT, this is the flip-flop and the U-turns to beat them all, isn't it?
Well, I think that's extraordinary. Labour don't really put up VAT. The Tories do that. It's seen to hit those on lower incomes much harder than those on higher incomes. That's why Labour do try and bring down VAT whenever they can. Cost of living is polling very, very high as a concern. To lift VAT to deal with concerns with a £30 billion black hole in the autumn budget will be a real backward step. I was surprised that the PM couldn't say explicitly we're not going to put up VAT in the budget earlier today. He said instead that the manifesto still stands, and that's a worry. Elsewhere today, I think Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, she's making interesting remarks now about indefinite leave to remain. Migrants who want to be here for a long time for their lives must do voluntary work. That's interesting. That's in the Sun on Sunday. That is, I think people I've got a lot of people are buying shares heavily in the new Home Secretary to get to grips with small boats and being tough on the issue of migration.
And yet the Prime Minister's rhetoric this morning is that it's a racist policy.
That was attacking Reform's policy to deport people here. He says that's right there. That's strong language. You heard from Jake Berry on your show earlier. It's not language. I think using the racist word is what I think shows a panic in Labour. Don't say the word racist. Take on the arguments, but that really means anyone backing that party is racist, and that's very dangerous.
And I don't think that's true at all. In my constituency, when I speak to people who have voted Reform, maybe voted Reform in the local elections.
Are they racist?
No. I don't think they are, and I don't think to have concerns about immigration is racist at all, and we shouldn't be calling out as racist. But I do think.
So why call it racist? Why call a policy racist when you want to remove migrants? Why say that word?
Because I do have lots of conversations with people where they are concerned about immigration, but they also acknowledge that legal immigration, when done right, is a good thing. And what Nigel Farage said around removing indefinite leave to remain and taking legal immigrants out of the country is ripping apart communities. I mean, I know in my constituency, for example, I have a big hospital. There are lots of people working there who come from other countries, come here, and they make our public services and they make our country better. And when immigration is done good, we should acknowledge it.
Sure.
But when it's not done right, we also need to call it out, and that doesn't make you racist by calling it out.
Isn't that Reform argument an argument for quality over quantity? If it is right, as Nigel Farage announced in that bombshell press conference last week, that over half of those who are on indefinite leave to remain are also claiming welfare benefits and access to the NHS, that they're actually a drain on the British economy. Well, they're not a net positive, they're a net negative.
Well, that's almost a separate issue in terms of people, the increase of people claiming benefits, and that is something that we need to crack down on. We need to get people into work. We need to make sure that they're contributing to our economy as well. But that doesn't take away from the fact that immigration does benefit our country in so many ways.
But on that note, Rosie, because I know this is kind of like reformish territory, but do you have an opinion on how swiftly migrants to this country should be able to claim benefits and access to the NHS? If I emigrated to America, I know they've got a different kind of health system there. There'd be no welfare support for me. There'd be no health support for me. I would expect to go out there on a green card, earn my own way, and not rely on the state at all.
I think it's vital that when people come to this country, they make Britain their home. We're a fantastic country. It is a privilege to be here, that they should be contributing to our economy. And that is why understanding where skills gaps are and having a proper strategy, which this government has and the previous government just did not at all, so that we're bringing over skills that we need so that we can have people that contribute to our economy, is vital.
Chopper, how much trouble is the Prime Minister actually in? You know, it's not just the Andy Burnham kind of early coup attempt. That could be a little too soon. It could be too soon. But, you know, we've still got this kind of donations gate story rumbling on. We've now got suggestions that the ID card thing might benefit Larry Ellison, who's best mates with Tony Blair. There's just story after story of sort of scandal and sleaze.
What I think people here want to hear from the PM is the Starmer story. What does he mean? So is ID cards about migration, or is it about an easier way to get hold of access to your state pension information or benefit information? What is it? Because it's not clear. It's been sold to us on cracking down on illegal migration when it's also called a bedrock of modern society hours later on Friday by Darren Jones. That's what I think. What is it about? What is your story, Keir Starmer? The polls today are dreadful. He's the worst rating Prime Minister since the 1970s. He far outstrips the lows hit by John Major in '94 by Rishi Sunak in April 2024. He's got to do better, and we want to hear more of a kind of passionate Keir Starmer. When I was at this event on Friday with him, when he went off script and did a Q&A, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
It's when he's reading stuff out.
Is he going to be flag flying? Why have you got some union flags with you there?
Well, I bought a present here for Rosie Whiting, and that's for you, and that's for you.
Now,
because the PM also called, didn't he? These are good quality flags here.
They are good quality flags.
Take my eye out there, Rosie. The PM also talked about patriotic, progressive patriotism. Here's our giving flags out all week to anyone who wants one. Comes to GB News stand, give you a flag, wave it around. We love the flag at GB News, as Brits do.
Rosie, do we love the flag? Why has the flag been sullied so much in recent time? There's nothing wrong with flying the flag in Britain and in England, is there?
I'm incredibly proud of our flag. I'm incredibly proud to be British, and that's partly one of the reasons that I wanted to run to be a member of Parliament. And I will always be proud of our country, what we've done throughout history. But what I think it means to be British is a tolerant, inclusive country.
And that flag symbolises that, surely?
Yes, it does, and I'm proud to hold it.
All right, Rosie Whiting, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having
First time I've spoken to you on my GB News show. Politics needs more women.
She's
and
great,
men like Rosie, young people who are interested and engaged and want to make a difference.
And comes on GB News with a strong defence of the party's policy.
Unlike the Prime Minister chops. Are you going to speak to him at all this week? Do we know?
We hope so. Maybe not this time, I think.
I think he's a little bit frit of me anyway. I can't get him on the show, and I've been presenting it now for more than 2 years. It's odd, isn't it? I can't think what... I mean, it went really well for Steve Reid earlier. Coming up next, it's Michael Portillo, but this week with the very brilliant Angela Rippon, who, let's be honest, thinking of the flag, is a national treasure, ladies and gentlemen. Angela, what's coming up today?
Good morning, Camilla. My gosh, you have had a really lively programme today, haven't you? Lots of politics, of course, because you're in Liverpool, and I'm afraid we can't get away from it on our programme either. But what I am going to do, I hope, is bring a bit of light relief, because we're going to be talking about a terrific breakthrough in a new drug for people who have Huntington's disease. But we're also going to, of course, talk about Strictly Come Dancing, which was on last night, and slow horses, and also 200 years of the railway. Pity Michael's not here.
Pity Michael's not here, although you speaking about Strictly is a perfect thing. Angela, thank you very much indeed. You're coming up next at 11. I'm going to be back at 9:30, back on the railways, because I'm going to be in Manchester for the Conservative Party conference. More hearty grilling then. But up next, as I say, before Angela Rippon, it's your latest weather forecast. Have a lovely Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A fine Sunday afternoon to come for many of us. There will be some sunshine in places too, but do watch out for some fog and some frost around tonight. And there will be some rain around through this afternoon as well in the south and the southeast. And that's courtesy of this slow-moving cold front, just dragging its heels a little bit. But otherwise, a fine afternoon to come with a mixture of cloud and sunny spells for many of us. 1 or 2 showers perhaps in the west and more especially across northern parts of Scotland, where a few heavier ones are possible across the Northern Isles. Across the East Anglia region and perhaps also the southeast, thicker clouds here, so feeling a little bit cooler than yesterday with some ongoing showery rain in places. But a fine afternoon for most and temperatures around average for the time of year. As we move into this evening then, still thicker cloud across parts of East Anglia, particularly Kent as well and Sussex and the London area, but any rain tending to die away. A few showers also perhaps for the southwest and parts of Wales, but many other northern and western parts of the UK will have a fine evening with sunny spells and just the odd shower still around across parts of Scotland. And as we go through the course of the evening, those clear skies will tend to lengthen, so many places turning dry with clear and starry skies through this evening and overnight, and that is going to be a recipe for temperatures to fall away quite quickly and also some mist and fog to develop. I wouldn't want to rule it out anywhere really, but it's most likely across eastern parts of England, especially